What if a simple act of kindness, a daily gesture you thought no one noticed, was actually a test for everything? Sophia Martinez, a 24-year-old waitress drowning in debt and faded dreams. Kindness was all she had left to give. Her recipient was Henry, a silent, grumpy old man who shuffled into her diner every morning, a ghost at a corner booth. She offered him a warm smile, a fresh coffee, and a small piece of her time, expecting nothing in return. She had no idea he was guarding a secret worth billions, a secret that was about to detonate her life. Because one rainy Tuesday, the diner door didn't open for Henry. It opened for his lawyers, flanked by 4 stone-faced bodyguards, and they were there for her. The bell above the door of the Sunrise Diner was the soundtrack to Sophia Martinez's life. A tired metallic chime announcing another customer needing coffee, another plate to carry. The diner was a relic, worn vinyl booths, sticky linoleum floor, and a persistent aroma of burnt coffee and frying bacon. For Sophie, it was both her prison and her sanctuary. For 3 years, 6 days a week, from 5:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., Sophie had danced the familiar ballet of the Waitress. Her real passion was locked away in a tiny apartment, gathering dust on canvases she could no longer afford. Art school had become a distant dream, buried under her mother's medical bills. Her regulars were predictable. There was Frank, the construction foreman who left exactly a $1 tip. The 2 chatty secretaries who dissected their boss's love life over salads. And then there was Henry. Henry was different. Every morning at precisely 7:15 a.m., he would shuffle to booth 4 in the back corner. He never made eye contact. He wore the same faded tweed coat, worn trousers, and scuffed shoes. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes pale, watery blue that seemed to look right through everything. Her boss, Sal, had warned her, "Don't bother with the old guy in 4. He doesn't talk. Just give him black coffee and the daily special." Brenda, the veteran waitress, sneered, "Waste of a 4 top." But Sophie saw profound loneliness, a quiet dignity, so she ignored Sal's advice. "Good morning, sir. My name is Sophie. Can I start you with some coffee?" He just grunted. She poured anyway. For a week, he met her greetings with silence. Then one Monday, she noticed him struggling to cut his toast with dull knives. His knuckles were swollen with arthritis. Without thought, she picked up the knife. "Allow me," she said gently. She cut his toast into 4 perfect squares. For the first time, Henry looked up. His eyes met hers, and for a fleeting second she saw surprise, maybe gratitude. He gave a sharp nod, then looked back at his plate. It was a victory. From that day, it became their ritual. She'd bring coffee, the daily special, and always cut his toast. Sometimes she'd talk, filling the silence with stories about her day, her dream of visiting the Louvre. He never responded, but she felt he was listening. He would occasionally leave an extra quarter, a silent acknowledgement more valuable than a $20 tip. Her co-workers teased her relentlessly. "Still talking to your boyfriend, Sophie?" Brenda would mock. Sophie didn't care. Those 10 minutes every morning became a strange anchor in her chaotic life. She wasn't doing it for a tip or praise. She was doing it because the lonely old man deserved warmth. She had no idea her simple kindness was being observed, cataloged, and judged. The Tuesday started like any other. Sophie was running on 4 hours of sleep, having spent the night on the phone with her mother's care facility. 7:15 a.m. came and went. Booth 4 remained empty. Henry was never late. Never. By 7:30, genuine concern crept in. At 8:05, the bell chimed, but it wasn't Henry. The entire diner fell silent. 4 men, all built like refrigerators in immaculate black suits with earpieces, stepped inside. 2 flanked the door. The others stepped aside for a 5th man, older, silver hair, sharp angles, intelligent eyes. He wore a tailored charcoal gray suit and carried a pristine leather briefcase. "Can I help you?" Sal asked, his bluster gone. The man ignored him. His gaze landed on Sophie by the coffee machine. He walked directly toward her. "The bodyguards followed. Are you Miss Sophia Martinez?" His voice was calm, deep, authoritative. Sophie's heart hammered. She could only nod. "My name is Richard Ellis. I am a senior partner at Sterling Cromwell and Ellis. I was the personal attorney for Mr. Henry Thompson." "Henry," she whispered. Is he okay? He didn't come in this morning. Mr. Ellis's expression softened. Mr. Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep late last night. A wave of unexpected grief washed over her. "Oh," she said. "I'm so sorry. Mr. Thompson's final will requires your immediate presence. A car is waiting outside." Sophie stared, bewildered. "Will? I think you have the wrong person. I just served him coffee. There is no mistake, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Thompson was quite clear. For the past year and a half, you have cut his toast into 4 equal squares every morning without fail and without ever being asked." The detail stunned Sophie into silence. He had noticed. Numbly, Sophie untied her apron. She grabbed her satchel. The bodyguards and lawyer formed a protective circle as they escorted her out. A sleek black town car was idling at the curb. As she slid onto the plush leather seat, she looked back at the Sunrise Diner. It looked small and sad. She had a feeling she would never see it the same way again. The offices of Sterling Cromwell and Ellis were in a gleaming skyscraper penthouse. Marble floors, towering glass walls, art-filled corridors. Sophie felt like a stray cat in a palace. She was led into a vast boardroom. At one end sat 2 people radiating impatient, resentful privilege. The man was late 20s with slicked-back hair, designer suit, and a petulant scowl. The woman beside him was impeccably dressed, her face a mask of polite disdain. Mr. Ellis cleared his throat. "Miss Diana Thompson, Mr. Lucas Thompson. This is Miss Sophia Martinez." Lucas's eyes swept over Sophie dismissively. "This is who we've been waiting for? A waitress? Grandfather's gone senile." "Lucas, please." His mother chided without heat. "Miss Martinez, please have a seat," Mr. Ellis said. Sophie sat, hands clenched. "Now that all parties are present, we can begin," Ellis announced, opening a thick, leather-bound document. Most was legal jargon that flew over Sophie's head. Trusts, endowments, staggering sums. Then Ellis paused. "To my daughter-in-law, Diana Thompson, and my grandson, Lucas Thompson, I leave the Thompson Family Trust." "This amounts to $10 million each," Lucas scoffed. $10 million? That's it? That's an insult. The company is worth billions. "Your grandfather liquidated his personal assets," Ellis said coolly. "He owed it to us." "We're his family," Diana snapped. Ellis continued. "To my friend and physician, Dr. James Foster, I leave $1 million, sir." He turned a page. "And now we come to the final provision. To Miss Sophia Martinez, the young woman at the Sunrise Diner, who showed an old man kindness when she had no reason to, who treated him with dignity when others saw only a nuisance, and who without fail cut his toast because she noticed his hands trembled." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "To Ms. Martinez, I leave a legacy of kindness returned. First, I bequeath $250,000 to be transferred immediately to ease her burdens as she once eased mine." Sophie gasped. $250,000. It would pay for her mother's care for years. "It was a miracle!" "What?" Lucas exploded. "He's given $250,000 to a hash slinger?" "We'll contest this." He was not of sound mind. "Please sit down." "Mr. Thompson, I am not finished." Lucas sank back, face flushed with rage. "And finally, because it was the last place on earth where I felt seen, not as a source of wealth, but as a human being, I bequeath to Miss Sophia Martinez in its entirety the property and business known as the Sunrise Diner, which I purchased 6 months ago through a subsidiary company." Profound silence filled the boardroom. The diner. He bought the diner for her. Lucas started to laugh, sharp, ugly, incredulous. The diner. He leaves her a greasy spoon. After all that build-up, he leaves the waitress her own cage, but Mr. Ellis wasn't smiling. "There is one more thing, Ms. Martinez. Included with the diner is a small investment portfolio to ensure its long-term viability. It is currently valued at approximately $5 million. The laughter died. Lucas's face went from red to sickly pale. Sophie felt the floor drop. $5 million. The diner wasn't a cage. It was a kingdom. The grumpy, silent old man wasn't just wealthy. He was Henry Thompson, founder of Thompson Global, a corporate titan who had hidden in plain sight. And he had just handed her the keys to a new life, a life that, judging by Lucas Thompson's murderous look, was about to become very dangerous. Leaving the law office was like stepping into a hurricane. The bodyguards shielded Sophie from Lucas's furious insults. "This isn't over, you little gold digger. I'll have my lawyers crawl over every inch of this." Mr. Ellis gave her his card and documents. "A financial advisor will call tomorrow. Do not speak to anyone, especially the Thompsons." Mr. Thompson anticipated their reaction. The car dropped her at her rundown apartment building. The contrast was jarring. She climbed the creaky stairs, clutching the folder. The first thing she did was call her mother's care facility. She paid the entire outstanding balance, then paid for the next 2 years in advance, requesting the best possible care. The relief brought her to her knees. She sat on her floor and wept. By afternoon, she knew she couldn't hide. She had to face them. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the Sunrise Diner. Through the window, she saw Brenda looking hassled and Sal sweating over the grill. She pushed open the door. The bell chimed. Every head turned. "Hi, Sal," she said, voice surprisingly steady. "I guess you've heard. Henry, Mr. Thompson, left me some money. And he left me the diner." A collective gasp. Sal's spatula clattered. "He what?" "You sold it 6 months ago to HT Holdings. You've been operating as a salaried manager since then." Sal stared, face ashen. "So I've been working for the old man all this time. And now I work for you." Brenda let out a bitter laugh. "So what now, boss? Are you going to fire us all?" This was her first test. Sophie took a deep breath. She thought of Henry, his quiet dignity. No one is getting fired. Nothing is changing right now. Sal, you're the best grill cook in the city. Brenda, you can handle a 6-table rush without breaking a sweat. I don't know the first thing about running a business. I'm going to need your help." Her honesty deflated tension. "But I am going to buy a new coffee machine and a knife sharpener, and we are going to fix the air conditioning." It was the right thing to say. The kitchen staff chuckled. These were their daily complaints. Just then the bell chimed. A messenger stood there. "Package for Sophia Martinez." He handed her a box from the law firm. Inside was a single brass key and a handwritten note from Henry. "My dear Sophia, if you are reading this, then you have received my gift. The money is for your freedom. The diner is for your heart. This key is for your future. It opens my private study. Richard knows where. Go there, understand why. HT a key, a secret study. The inheritance wasn't just money and a building. It was a mystery. The address Mr. Ellis gave for Henry's residence was on Park Avenue, a pre-war limestone building with a doorman. Mr. Ellis was waiting. He hasn't allowed anyone into his personal apartment in over a decade. This was his sanctuary. The elevator opened into the apartment. Sophie forgot to breathe. It was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. But it wasn't the view that stunned her. It was the art. The walls were covered with masterpieces. A Monet, a Degas sculpture, a Van Gogh self-portrait. He was one of the world's most discreet art collectors, Ellis said softly. This collection is priceless. The apartment felt profoundly lonely. No family photos, no clutter, just priceless art and sterile furniture. A gilded cage. "The study is this way," Ellis said. He stopped at a heavy oak door. "I will wait for you out here." Sophie's hand trembled as she inserted the brass key. It turned with a click. She pushed the door open. The study was warm and lived in. Books crammed every shelf. A worn leather armchair sat beside a fireplace. But what dominated was the wall behind the massive desk, a corkboard stretching floor to ceiling, covered in photographs, stock charts, legal documents, and handwritten notes connected by colored strings. It was a strategic map of a global empire. This was the real Henry Thompson. At the center was a small, blurry photograph of a woman laughing on a checkered blanket in a park, beautiful with kind eyes and a warm smile. Next to it, another photo of the same woman in front of a small storefront. The sign read, "Eleanor's Eats." Sophie's eyes found newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. Promising restaurateur. Eleanor Thompson dies in car accident. Corporate raider Marcus Vance acquires bankrupt. Restaurant chain. Thompson Global announces hostile takeover of Vance Industries. It clicked into place. Eleanor must have been his wife. A restaurateur. She had been killed, and a corporate predator named Vance had profited, only to be crushed years later by a vengeful Henry. Another section was dedicated to Lucas. Photos of him on yachts, in nightclubs. Financial reports showing massive losses from a failed tech startup. Copies of checks Henry had written to pay off Lucas's gambling debts. One note in Henry's hand read, "He has her name, but none of her heart." Finally, her eyes found a small space on the board. Tacked to it was a recent photo of Sophie herself outside the Sunrise Diner on her break, smiling. Pinned next to it was a handwritten note. "She has her heart." Tears streamed down Sophie's face. It was never about the toast. He wasn't testing her kindness. He was looking for a reflection of his lost wife, Eleanor. He was searching for someone with a good heart, someone who understood that the value of a place wasn't in its price tag, but in the warmth it offered. In leaving her the diner, he wasn't just giving a gift. He was entrusting her with Eleanor's legacy. Suddenly, new determination hardened her grief. This wasn't just about money. It was about honoring the faith of a lonely old man who had lost everything that truly mattered. She walked to the desk. On it was a sealed envelope addressed to her. Inside was a letter and a stock certificate for a single share of Thomson Global. The letter read, "Sophia, knowledge is power. This single share gives you the legal right to attend the annual shareholder meeting next month. Lucas will be there. He will try to seize control. He thinks you are a nobody. Prove him wrong. Everything you need is in this room. Your friend, Henry." Sophie looked around at the web of power, the story of love, loss, and revenge. Henry hadn't just given her a diner and a fortune. He had given her an arsenal. The war with Lucas Thompson was coming. The following weeks were a blur. She spent days at the diner and nights in Henry's study. Mr. Ellis arranged unlimited access to the penthouse. At first, her presence at the Sunrise was awkward. She tried to fall back into her old role, but Sal and the others wouldn't let her. "You're the owner now, Sophie. You should be in the office." He was right. She began to learn profit margins, supply chains, and payroll. The $5 million portfolio was a carefully managed fund generating steady income. She gave the entire staff a raise. Brenda was the most resistant. The turning point came when the ancient air conditioner died. "That's it. I quit," Brenda announced. "I'm not working in a sauna," the old Sophie would have pleaded. The new Sophie nodded. "You're right. It's unacceptable." She got on the phone. Within 2 hours, technicians installed a brand new commercial air conditioning system. The next day, Brenda came back to work and started calling her boss. And for the first time, it didn't sound like an insult. Her nights were spent in Henry's study. With Mr. Ellis as her tutor, she unraveled the complex web. She learned about shell corporations, leveraged buyouts, proxy battles. She read Henry's private journals filled with observations on business and his profound grief for Eleanor. She learned about Lucas's recklessness, his failed ventures, his resentment. She discovered Henry's masterstroke. In his final years, he had systematically broken up pieces of Thomson Global. He had converted most of his fortune into charitable foundations. Lucas's inheritance was intentionally capped. Henry had starved his grandson of resources for an easy takeover. Lucas thought he was inheriting a kingdom. Henry had left him a battlefield with a depleted army. Lucas's plan was clear. At the upcoming shareholder meeting, he would call for a vote of no confidence in the current CEO and use his family name to get himself installed as chairman. "He can't win outright," Mr. Ellis explained. "But he can cause chaos. He can spook investors, drive the stock price down, and force a sale to a rival who will install him as a puppet. His ego won't accept anything less, even if it means burning the empire to the ground." "So how do we stop him?" Sophie asked, looking at the single share certificate. "We use the truth," Ellis said. "That share gives you the right to speak to the shareholders. We can't outvote him, but perhaps we can outmaneuver him." They formulated a plan. It was audacious, terrifying, and relied entirely on Sophie's ability to convince a room full of sharks that a waitress knew better than the heir to the Thompson fortune. The day of the shareholder meeting arrived. Sophie stood in front of the mirror. She was wearing an impeccably tailored navy blue suit. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, calm, confident, but inside her heart was a trapped bird. "You're ready," Mr. Ellis said. Henry would be proud. 2 bodyguards escorted her. As she walked through the gleaming lobby of Thomson Global Tower, she saw Lucas standing with his allies, laughing, oozing arrogance. He saw her and his face froze. "Well, well, look what the cat dragged in," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Come to serve coffee, sweetheart?" Sophie didn't rise to the bait. She met his gaze. "I'm a shareholder, Lucas," she said, voice clear and steady. "And I have a right to be here." She walked past him, head held high, leaving him momentarily speechless. The battle had begun. The boardroom was an amphitheater of corporate power, a massive U-shaped table filled with board directors, tiers of seats with major shareholders, analysts, and media. Sophie took a seat in the front row. She felt 100 pairs of eyes on her. The meeting began with dry presentations. Sophie listened, hands clasped tightly. Then the chairman opened the floor for new business. Lucas immediately stood up. He was a natural performer, charming and confident. He spoke of legacy, of his family's name, of a bold new vision. "My grandfather was a legend, but his time has passed. Thomson Global needs new blood, a new direction. It needs a Thomson at the helm." He formally made his motion, a vote of no confidence in the CEO, and the nomination of himself as the new chairman. A tense murmur went through the room. Lucas's allies voiced support. It was clear he had momentum. "Is there anyone else who wishes to speak before we call the vote?" the chairman asked. With a silent nod from Mr. Ellis, Sophie stood up. Confused whispers rippled through the audience. Lucas smirked. "I believe the floor is for shareholders, not the catering staff." "I am a shareholder," Sophie said. "My name is Sophia Martinez." She looked at the board members, the investors. "Mr. Thomson speaks of his grandfather's legacy. I'm here today because I, too, was a part of Henry Thompson's legacy. Not the legacy of billions, but the legacy of his final years." She told them her story, simply and honestly, about the Sunrise Diner, about the quiet old man in booth 4, about cutting his toast because his hands shook. The room grew quiet, listening intently. In his final years, Henry Thompson wasn't interested in acquiring more companies. He was interested in one thing: character. He spent his days in a simple diner watching people. He wasn't looking for the next great CEO. He was looking for simple, honest decency. She turned to Lucas. "Lucas Thompson talks about a bold new vision. Henry Thompson's private records, which he left in my care, show Lucas's vision quite clearly." Mr. Ellis stood and placed a file in front of the chairman. "Copies for the board," Sophie continued, voice ringing with conviction. "A vision that led to a $30 million loss on a failed tech venture. A vision that required his grandfather to pay off over $2 million in personal gambling debts. A vision of such recklessness that Henry Thompson, in his own handwriting, wrote, 'My grandson has the ambition of a king, but the judgment of a fool.' He didn't leave his empire to Lucas out of fiduciary duty to protect it from the one person he knew would destroy it." Gasps echoed. Lucas's face turned blotchy, furious red. "These are lies, slander." "Are they?" Sophie challenged. "The documentation is all there." She played her final card. "But I'm not here to ask you to simply reject Lucas. I'm here to honor Henry's true final vision. He didn't want another king. He wanted stewardship." She looked at Robert Chen, the CEO. He left notes praising Mr. Chen's caution, his stability, his loyalty. He believed in him. But he also knew the company needed a soul. She turned back to the board. "Therefore, as a shareholder, I propose an amendment, the creation of the Thompson Legacy Foundation, to be funded by 10% of annual profits, dedicated to supporting small businesses and educational scholarships. And I nominate myself, Sophia Martinez, owner of the Sunrise Diner and Henry Thompson's chosen heir, to run it." It was a masterstroke. She wasn't asking for power over the company, but for moral authority within it. She had tied Henry's legacy to the company's future, offering shareholders a story of redemption and purpose instead of a power struggle. The room was silent. Then one of the oldest board members, a man who had known Henry for 50 years, began to clap slowly. Then the room joined him. Investors, analysts, even some of Lucas's supporters, captivated by the story, applauded. Lucas stood frozen, his face a mask of utter defeat. He had been beaten not by a corporate raider, but by a waitress with a story. The vote was a formality. Lucas's motion was crushed. Sophie's proposal was accepted unanimously. Months later, the Sunrise Diner was renovated. Clean, bright, with a state-of-the-art kitchen, but the worn, mustard-colored vinyl on booth 4 remained, preserved under protective plastic. A small brass plaque above it read, "Henry's Corner." Sophie split her time between running the diner with Sal as her highly paid manager and Brenda as her loyal head of staff, and managing the foundation, which was already changing lives. She finally had time to paint again, her canvases filled with vibrant color. She had found the balance between her old life and her new one, between art and commerce, between kindness and power. She had honored Henry's legacy, and in doing so had finally built her own. Sophia's story is a powerful reminder that the greatest investments are not in stocks or bonds, but in each other. A simple act of compassion can ripple outward in ways we can never predict. Henry Thompson had all the money in the world, but died searching for something money could never buy, genuine human connection. He found it in a humble diner, in the hands of a waitress who chose to be kind. Sophie didn't just inherit a fortune. She inherited a responsibility, proving that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you do with it.